Read to me, Grandma. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, retold by Margot Boyer. Once upon a time, there lived a sweet princess named Snow White. She was so beautiful that her evil stepmother, the queen, was very jealous. The queen was cruel to Snow White. She forced Snow White to wear rags and do chores all day long. Yet Snow White sang while she worked and kept her heart cheerful. She knew her true love would come for her one day. Each morning, the queen looked into her magic mirror and asked, "Magic mirror on the wall, who is the fairest one of all?" The mirror always answered, "You are." But one day the mirror said, "Snow White is now fairer than you." The queen was very jealous, so she decided to be rid of Snow White forever. She called for her huntsman to help her. The huntsman did as the queen commanded. He took the beautiful Snow White deep into the woods, where she gathered flowers happily. "The queen wishes you gone," the huntsman said suddenly. "You must hide from her. Go!" Snow White was very frightened and fled into the dark forest. When it became night, she fell asleep on the ground. At dawn, the forest creatures found her. When a rabbit sniffed at her hand, she woke up. "I have no place to stay," Snow White said to the little animals. The birds flew around Snow White and led her to a little cottage next to a stream. "It's just like a dollhouse," cried Snow White. She knocked on the door. When no one answered, she opened the door and stepped inside. Inside the little cottage was a kitchen, a fireplace, a small table, and 7 little chairs, all dirty. The sink was full of dishes. "It looks like children live here," said Snow White. "I can look after them." Snow White and her animal friends put things in order. Snow White swept the floor, and the rabbit helped. The chipmunks washed the dishes, and the birds brought flowers for the table. When all was tidy, Snow White went upstairs. She found a bedroom with 7 little beds. A name was carved on each one: Doc, Happy, Sneezy, Dopey, Grumpy, Bashful, and Sleepy. Soon Snow White fell asleep. The house belonged to the 7 dwarfs who worked in the diamond mine. When they came home, they saw that a fire had been lit. At first they were frightened, but then they found Snow White. She woke up and smiled at them. "Who are you?" asked Doc. "I am Snow White," she said. "I need a place to stay." "Stay with us," said the dwarfs. Then they all sat down to a good dinner. Afterward, they sang until it was time to go to bed. The queen found out about Snow White's hiding place in the forest. She disguised herself as an old peddler woman and dipped a red apple into a magic potion. Secretly, she set off in search of the beautiful Snow White. In the morning, the dwarfs went to work and left Snow White alone. She was baking pies when she saw an old woman outside. Snow White did not know that she was the queen. "Come in and rest," Snow White said. The queen gave Snow White the red apple and told her to take a bite. When Snow White bit into the apple, she fell to the floor in a deep, deep sleep. When the dwarfs came home, they found Snow White. Believing she was asleep forever, they made a bed for her out of gold and glass and laid her upon it in the forest. The dwarfs and the animals kept watch. Snow White was still, but her heart was beating. Meanwhile, the prince, who had searched far and wide for Snow White, heard about the beautiful maiden who slept in gold and glass bed. As soon as he got a glimpse of the sleeping princess, he knew she was his true love. The prince gently kissed Snow White. Slowly her eyes began to open. Love's first kiss had broken the queen's spell. The 7 dwarfs danced for joy. Snow White's true love had come for her. The end.